on a gorgeous Thursday afternoon. I think I'm overmodulating a little bit. I better calm down. I better just calm down. Test 1, 2, 3. It is Thursday, May the 16th, 2024. It's a beautiful day. Even with the Cavs loss, the Browns schedule is out, and the good weather is here. We're halfway through the spring. It's really this week that the weather usually changes. Welcome into the latest edition of the Bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by Bet Rivers. Folks, if you haven't used the Bet Rivers app, what are you doing? It is, in fact, I was just looking at the Bet Rivers app about 60 seconds before I went live because I wanted to see what the Browns' point spread was the first couple of weeks of the season. And, of course, like everything else it does well, the Bet Rivers app is up and running, and you got the spreads already on there for the first 2 weeks of the season. I will give you what those numbers are on from our sports book in just a couple of minutes. Also, with the NBA, even though the Cavs season's over, the NBA playoffs are still going on, and Bet Rivers continues to have the oh-so-close parlay insurance during these NBA playoffs. Place a parlay of 4 or more legs on an NBA playoff game each day, and you get part of your stake back in bonus bets if you're exactly one leg short of hitting your parlay. The insurance is valid on your first NBA parlay of the day. See the Bet Rivers app for more details and see how much stake back you are eligible for. I got the YouTube chat up, so start sending messages my way. If you want to join me live, get your face on camera, on air, and ask me a question, we will put a link in the chat here in just a minute for you to click on. You got to have a Safari. I'm sorry, not Safari, Google Chrome, or you got to have the Riverside app to be able to join me. So I'm sure I don't know how many people in the Riverside app, so you're going to want to be on Google Chrome. Chris, always with the traditional bull tweet or message in YouTube to start us off. Chris, glad to have you with me as always. Let's jump right into it. The Brown schedule is out. I talked about it a little bit on last night's podcast, but I wanted to dive deeper into it as we start the season. We've known for a few days that the Browns will open up against the Dallas Cowboys, and you know, when you look at what the Brown, I love this matchup, and I'm excited about this first matchup because the Cowboys always get a ton of hype. They're always one of the lead stories on the national TV shows, and fans like that. I don't really care about that stuff, but I know fans always get pissed that the Browns don't get more coverage. Now, it'll be more about the Cowboys, certainly before the game, but it's a good spotlight for the Browns. The first game is at home. They play at 4:25 Eastern, of course, and Tom Brady will be on the call. It'll be Tom Brady's first game ever as a broadcaster, and that will be calling the Browns and the Cowboys. So not only is it exciting because it's opening day, not only is it exciting because it's the home opener, not only is it exciting because you're playing the Cowboys, but it's also exciting because I'm curious to hear how Tom Brady does in his first game as an analyst. So there's a lot to be excited about in this situation. And so I'm pretty pumped. I'm pretty pumped to get to. Now we got a while to go. Nobody wants to rush the summer. What do we got? June, July, August, 4 months. The season starts in about 4 months. So we'll get there eventually, and we'll all be ready for it by the time it happens. But you don't want to rush the summer along the way. But when it comes to this matchup, again, I go to the Bet Rivers app, and here at the Bet Rivers Sportsbook, the Browns are a 1-point underdog against the Dallas Cowboys for their opener. That's as of now. They're minus 105 on the money line to win. Cowboys are minus 117. It's basically a pick-em game, but the Browns technically, as of the moment, are getting 1 point. The over-under is 44 in this game. If you want to look at the other, and before I get to the rest of the schedule, I'll just tell you the other AFC North teams opening up. The Ravens play the first game of the season against the Chiefs on Thursday night. The Chiefs are a 3-point favorite in that one. Remember, the Chiefs, of course, beat the Ravens in the AFC Championship game last season. The Bengals have the most favorable Week 1 matchup. They host the New England Patriots. I believe the Bengals are the biggest favorite in the league in Week 1. Just double check that I'm right about that. That is correct, I think. Yes. The Bengals are a 9-point favorite at home against the Patriots. Patriots could very well be the worst team in the league this year, although you never know with a rookie quarterback. And the Steelers, their first game is on the road. They are in Atlanta. And in that game, the Falcons have opened up as a 3-point favorite. So there you go. Those are spreads for all the AFC North teams. But when you look at the Browns' schedule, and we'll kind of do it in chunks here. We got the graphics, and we'll put it 6 games at a time or 6 weeks at a time. But if you look at it in chunks, it's very interesting when you look at the schedule, because the Browns have 10 games where they're facing. This is going into the season. You never know. As we saw last year, guys can certainly get hurt. But they're facing 10 quarterbacks that are good to great. And that's a lot. Now, well, they're facing 8 quarterbacks, but 2 of them, Burrow and Lamar Jackson, they face twice. So there's 10 games in which they are facing good to great quarterbacks. And then there's 7 games where they're facing average or below quarterbacks. And they're all clumped together. The first 2 games of the season, they face very good quarterbacks. Then they have 3 games in a row against nothing quarterbacks. Then 4 games in a row against good quarterbacks. Then 4 in a row against nothing quarterbacks. Then 4 in a row again against good quarterbacks. We'll show it to you again in a minute. But let's start with the first 6 games of the year. The Browns will play 4 of their first 6 on the road, including a 3-game road stretch from the last week of September through the second week of October. After playing Dallas in week 1, that's a 4:25 game. The Browns will go to Jacksonville for their first road game, a 1 p.m. start, game 2 on the 15th. And then in week 3, their last home game in a month, or a little less than a month, when they host the Giants. Giants probably the worst team on the Browns schedule. I don't have the point spread yet for week 3, but as of now, that would probably be the game the Browns were the biggest favorite in. The worst teams on their schedule are the Giants, the Raiders, and Washington, which is 3 straight weeks. Probably, I'll say the Chargers, but they have a good quarterback, so I'm not going to count them out. New coach, they'll probably bounce back. Obviously, no offense to Max, one of the producers for the show. He's a Saints fan, but they stink. So they're not very good. Neither is Denver. But everybody else they're playing is good. The problem is when you look at the weaker teams on their schedule, the 5 weakest teams they're going to play, the Giants, the Raiders, the Commanders, the Saints, and the Broncos. 4 of those 5 games are on the road. So that makes it tricky. So going into the season, the biggest favorite that the Browns would be against the Giants. I would think they might be as much as a touchdown favorite over the Giants, depending on how the season starts, obviously. But the Giants are a miserable team. They were a fraud 2 years ago when they made the playoffs. Daniel Jones caught lightning in a bottle. Brian Daboll caught lightning in a bottle. They got, the Browns need to take advantage of these early season games. And again, I know Vegas and Washington are on the road. Jacksonville, who's, I expect to be an okay team, is on the road as well. The Browns really need to get off to a good start because their schedule in October and their schedule in December and into January is brutal. September and November is where they got to rack up the wins. Now, I'll say this. The Browns have a good enough roster that if Deshaun Watson plays like he's capable of, like we've seen from him in Houston, if we get that Deshaun, and I've said that so many times, I'm kind of sick of saying it. I hope we get to a point this year where it's just given that he's going to be that guy. If he gets back to that, then it doesn't matter who the Browns are playing because they could beat anybody. There's not a game on the Browns schedule that I look at and say, there's no way they win this game. And for how many years, for you out there, you guys watching, did you go into the season where there were 4, 5, maybe 10 games that you thought the Browns got no shot of winning this game? No realistic shot. They're going to be a huge underdog. Well, that's not going to be the case anything. I mean, if we put out the point spreads now for all 17 games for the Browns, the biggest underdog they would be is, at Cincinnati or at Baltimore, at Philly or Kansas City at home maybe, And none of those games, they're not going to be huge underdogs. Again, it could change based on injuries and how the teams are playing. But those spreads right now, they're not a big dog in any of those games. Probably a little more than a field goal at Baltimore. Probably around a field goal at Philly and Cincinnati. Maybe they're a slight dog at home to Kansas City. But there's no games where they're going to be a touchdown underdog, at least on paper today. So every game they have is winnable. Now, on the other hand, there's not a lot of games where you're like, there's no way they're losing that game. Because first of all, it's the NFL, and there's not that many terrible teams. And the Browns are not playing many terrible teams. I talked about having 10 games against really good quarterbacks. Well, in addition to that, you have Pittsburgh twice. Now, they have a mediocre quarterback situation, obviously, but we know there's no gimmies against the Steelers. We know how good they are, they're coached, and how well they play. So that's now you're up to 12 games. And certainly the chart, so the 5 games where you have a team that you expect to be average or below and not a particularly good quarterback are the Giants, Vegas, Washington, Denver, and New Orleans. And again, 4 of those 5 are on the road. So you're never going to think a road game is a gimme. Now, if the Browns lost to the Giants, that'd be pretty disappointing. But even the Giants, I don't think they're good, but they're not. I don't think they're horrendous. They're not the Patriots. There's just right now, there's not that many teams, especially in the AFC, that are just atrocious. Like, obviously, I've made it pretty clear, I think New England's going to be hideous. Let's look at the teams that won, I'll say, 6 or less games last year. So you have New England. They won 4. I expect them to be just as bad, if not worse. Tennessee won 6. I think they'll be better, more competitive. I don't think they're very good. I still think they'll finish under 500. They'll win at least 6 again. I think they could win 7, 8 games. The Chargers won 5. They'll certainly be better than that with Herbert and a good coach. Washington, 4 wins. I think they're pretty bad. But they got a rookie quarterback. You never know. New coach there as well. I think they'll be pretty bad. And that's another game I'm expecting the Browns to win. I think the Giants won 6 games last year. I think they'll be about there this year. Could I see them winning 8? Sure. Could I see them winning 5? Sure. I think they're bad, but not hideous. Not Patriots bad. I still think they're better than the Commanders. And then you got Carolina. That's an awful, awful team. Arizona won 4 games. They'll be better. So outside of Carolina and New England, I don't think there's any teams that are hideous. Now, they'll end up being a couple of others because there always are. But on paper, Arizona, Washington, the Giants, the Chargers, and the Titans, the other bad teams last year, I think those are all teams that could win 7, 8 games. They won't all do it, but they all could. It's possible. Again, you got some new coaches, a lot of new quarterbacks. In Arizona's case, maybe you have Kyler Murray healthy for the whole year. The only teams in the NFL that I think have no shot at winning at least 7 games are Carolina and New England. Now, and the Browns don't play either of those teams. And that's the advantage that the Bengals have when it comes to the schedule is the Browns, the Ravens, and the Steelers don't play either of those teams. The Bengals play both Carolina and New England. That's a big advantage in the schedule because those are the 2 worst teams in the league. So while I look at the Browns schedule and I say there's no sure wins, no sure losses, I look at the Bengals schedule, I also say no sure wins. I'm sorry, I say no sure losses. But Carolina and New England feel like sure wins. Now, again, it's the NFL. You never know. Crazier things have happened. But the Bengals are a 9-point favorite over New England, as I said. And then the Carolina game, when did they play Carolina? Oh, they play Carolina in week 4. That's a road game. Man, the Bengals schedule outside of the Chiefs in the first 6 weeks, well, the Chiefs and the Ravens. The Bengals play the Patriots, the Commanders, the Panthers, and the Giants in 4 of the first 6 weeks. Obviously, the Chiefs and Ravens are tough games for them. But that's pretty favorable there for them to get off to at least a 4-2 start. So that's a challenge. That they got a much, the Bengals will have the advantage of being able to play the Panthers, being able to play the Patriots, and the Commanders, who could end up being the 3rd worst team in the league. I don't know. The Giants and Commanders, but both those teams should be competitive, I think. All right, let's go back specifically to the Browns schedule. We talked about the first chunk of that schedule. concluding with the fifth game. And on our first panel, we got the Eagles game. Now, you see that that's the end of their third three-game road trip. It's the middle of October. If you were not with me yesterday, I mentioned that I'm thinking about doing a road trip to the New Jersey, Philly area in the middle of October to go see Browns, Eagles, 1 p.m. in Philly, and Bengals, Giants, 8:20 in New Jersey, which could be fun or could be a disaster. I don't know. But anyway, that game against the Eagles in Week 6 ends a road trip essentially, but starts a stretch of really tough games before the bye. So they have the Eagles on the road, the Bengals at home, which is the first division game, which is crazy that the Browns do not play a division game until Week 7. That's just wild to me. But they don't play a division game till Week 7, and it's the Bengals. And then in Week 8, they got Baltimore at home. Now, not only do the Browns not play a division game till Week 7, they don't play a division road game until, I think, Week 13 or 12, something like that. I can't remember the exact week. It's in December. They play all three AFC North teams at home, and in the middle of the season, and then play them all on the road at the end of the season. So you see the Bengals and the Ravens. That's a 3-game home stand. In fact, the Browns will be home for a month. They'll go to Philadelphia on October the 13th and don't play on the road again for 5 weeks till they play the Saints in New Orleans on November the 17th. 3 straight home games: Bengals, Ravens, Chargers. Tough games, all 3, especially the first 2, but they're all at home. And after the Charger game, they get their bye. Remember last year, the Browns had a Week 5 bye. Much better this year having the Week 10 bye. 9 games, week off, 8 games. It can't be an exact split since we've gone to a 17-game schedule, but I think Week 10 is the perfect week. If I had to choose any week to have a bye, I would take Week 10. Every team in this division is between the Steelers have Week 9, the Browns are in Week 10, the Bengals in Week 14, and the Ravens are the Bengals in Week 12, and the Ravens in Week 14. After the bye, I mentioned the Saints on the road on the 17th. Then you finally play the Steelers for the first time on the Thursday before Thanksgiving. I think that's the Thursday before Thanksgiving. It's the Thursday before, right? Thanksgiving's late this year, the 28th. So the Browns don't play the Steelers until November 21st. It's a Thursday night game. And then the next week they play, and this is where the schedule gets really crazy because in the first 11 weeks, the Browns do not have a night game. They play all at 1 o'clock with a couple of 4:25s, including the opener. But then, starting with that Steeler game at home on November the 21st, the Browns play 4 night games in 6 weeks. And that doesn't include potentially the final game of the season against the Ravens on the road. Remember that last week, there's no Thursday night football, there's no Monday night football, but there is a Sunday night football game. And there's a good chance it could be an AFC North game. There's a good chance it could be the Browns and Ravens. And that would mean 5 night games in 7 weeks. But either way, the Browns will play 4 in 6 weeks, starting with Denver on Thursday night on the road. Then the following week, they'll play a Monday night game. Starting with the Steelers at home on the 21st on Thursday night. Then the Broncos on the road Monday night, the first Monday in December. Then 2 1 o'clock games, tough ones at Pittsburgh, Kansas City at home. I haven't seen the Chiefs in Cleveland in a bit. That'll be exciting. Then 2 more night games after that. At the Bengals, another Thursday night game. And then the Dolphins at home for a Sunday nighter, which you'd think on December 29th would be a big advantage for the Browns if the weather's bad. And then they got the Ravens to end the season on January the 5th. Time to be determined. The Browns preseason schedule, by the way, they're playing the Packers at home on August the 10th at 4:25. The Vikings at home August 17th at 4:25. And then they go to the Seahawks for the third and final preseason game, August 24th at 7 p.m. and then the couple of weeks off before the opener. So it's an exciting schedule. There's a lot of fun matchups. I don't look at anything as a sure win. I don't look at anything as a sure loss. I think the Browns are a good team with the potential to be a great team. It's all about Deshaun Watson. The rest of the roster is good. The difference between good and great, the difference between the Browns being a Super Bowl team with an early exit and a team that can win the Super Bowl is how good is Deshaun Watson. It's really that simple. Obviously, there's other factors, but the biggest factor is Deshaun Watson. Can they stay healthy? But the rest of the but that's for every team. The rest of the roster, in my opinion, is capable of going to the Super Bowl. Not easily, not a high percentage because it's the AFC. And there's 9-10 really good teams, and nobody gets a higher percentage than the Chiefs, who you got to knock them out before, going into this year. I just don't see how you don't pick the Chiefs. I mean, it's easy, it's predictable, it's boring, but I'm picking the Chiefs to go to the Super Bowl again. How can you pick against them? Last year, it looked like they were the worst team they've had in years. Not years, but in the Mahomes era, and they won the Super Bowl. So it's pretty hard to bet against the Chiefs. But if the Browns get great play, even very good play from Deshaun Watson, they can be a Super Bowl contender. I do believe that. I think they have the roster. And if that's the case, it doesn't matter who they play. A tough schedule, if you're a good team, it doesn't matter. Let's get to some messages on the YouTube chat. Again, if you want to jump in with me, that's fine. You click on the link. Let me tell you what we got here. Let's see. Let's see. Nikki V. While he was playing, were you a Brady fan, a Brady hater, or in between? I would say I was kind of in between. I kind of got sick of Brady because he won so much. It's like you want to see new guys get an opportunity. I wouldn't say I was a hater. So I definitely wasn't a fan. I mean, I respect his greatness. But I would classify myself to answer that question as in between on Tom Brady. Creative Juice, who made that great picture, Heavy B and the boys earlier today on UCSS. That was great, man. Says we need to go 6-3 or 7-2 before the bye, or we're not making the playoffs. You know what? They probably. I think if they're not at least 6-3, they're behind the 8 ball. I'll say that. I don't know that they need to be 7-2. I understand the back end of the schedule is tough, but I wouldn't say they have to be 7-2. Maybe 6-3. I mean, even if you're 5-4, I'm not going to count them out, even as tough as that schedule is. It really depends not only on their record, but how well is Deshaun Watson playing. That's a big part of it. Great Malenko says McNuggets is definitely wider than you. That was part of an earlier conversation. It was a funny conversation earlier today. Thank you, Great Maneko. Jonathan. Oh, no. Plasma Void says, hi. Mustafa says, beat the Cowboys, go Texans. I'm very high on the Texans this year. I think they could go to the Super Bowl. Now, obviously, C.J. Stroud, before you put him in that, and I think he's about to join the elite quarterbacks in this league. He's got to do it twice. He's got to do it back-to-back years before you can officially put him in there. For me, I can't put a guy in there based on one season, but I'd be stunned if C.J. Stroud is not a superstar again this year. And then, to me, he would cement himself. I think the kid's phenomenal. I've never seen a better rookie, or not that I can recall. Maybe Dan Marino. I mean, he was as good as it gets. Won a playoff game. Very impressive. The way the Texans boat raced the Browns, as we sadly all know. So I think the Texans are a big-time threat. The AFC is so good. All 4 teams in the North are excellent. The Chiefs are excellent. The Texans are excellent. I know the Bills have lost some talent. They're still really good. So's Miami. This is a big if, but if that lunatic Aaron Rodgers is healthy, it's a big if. 40 and coming off an Achilles. The Jets could still be good. They've got a lot of talent there. Even the Chargers could surprise. Who am I forgetting? The Colts will be interesting. Jacksonville's still pretty good. I mean, it is loaded in the AFC. Joseph Potter, love you. Njoku for 1,000. Love you too, Joseph. Or I don't know if he's saying love you to me or to Njoku. Njoku for 1,000 yards, a lot for a tight end. He had a great year last year, and could he get 1,000 yards? I think it's possible. But I mean, I wouldn't bet on 1,000 yards, and he could have a really good season, and it not be 1,000 yards. 1,000 yards for a tight end is a crazy amount, especially when you know that Amari Cooper, is going to be one of the main targets. So it's tricky. I would say he, obviously I have more faith in him going into the season, and he got off to a slow start last year. But 1,000 is a lot to ask, but I think it's possible. Let's see. Jim says 12-5 this year. Creative Juice, grading NFL drafts is kind of pointless. It's stupid. I don't do that. There isn't, grading NFL drafts is stupid. Now, you could say the schedule game is stupid too. We played the schedule game earlier on UCSS. I had the Browns finishing 10-7. The Browns over-under is 8.5. Let me just double check that. The latest from Bet Rivers. My man Alex sent me a full list of the futures odds here at Bet Rivers. The Browns over-under is 8.5. Yes. The Browns are plus 4,000 to win the Super Bowl. I'll give this is from our Bet Rivers Sportsbook. The Browns are plus 550 to win the North, third choice behind Baltimore and Cincinnati. Most likely finish is third, where they're plus 120. They're plus 4,000 to win the Super Bowl. The Niners are the favorite at plus 600, then the Chiefs at plus 650. Baltimore's third. Cincinnati, Detroit tied for fourth. Buffalo sixth. Texans seventh. Eagles eighth. Cowboys and Packers tied for ninth. Dolphins 11th. Rams and Jets tied for 12th. Falcons 14th. Chargers, Bears, Browns tied for 15th. Browns have the, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th. Tied for the 8th best. No. Yeah, tied for the 8th best odds to win the AFC. And their over-under is 8.5. Elsewhere in the division, Baltimore and Cincinnati at 10.5. I mentioned the Browns at 8.5. And the Steelers are also 8.5. That's the over-under. I got the Browns going over. I got them with 10 wins. I know Tyvis today was shocked that 10 wins as if I was insulting the team. I know they won 11 last year. And Deshaun Watson hopefully is significantly better this year, but their schedule is significantly better. And I'm not going to anticipate all the injuries that happen for the Browns or anybody else. I know they will, but you can't really work that into predictions. Let's see. Really Comics, we are ranked 1 in strength of schedule. What do you think will be ranked the strength of schedule at the end of the 24 season? Yeah, I don't look too much into that. It's based on last year's records. It can be distorted by one bad or good team you play. I think the Ravens actually have a slightly tougher schedule. The reason the Browns statistically is harder is because they play 2 games against the Ravens. The Ravens play 2 games against the Browns, and the Ravens won more games than the Browns last year. So if you take out those head-to-heads, the Browns' schedule is a little easier than Baltimore. Still hard and, one of the hardest in the league. Josh says, you were my first Cleveland broadcaster that I followed over 10 years, man. Thank you, Joseph. I'm calling you Josh because I knew a guy named Josh Potter who I used to work at the radio station with, and so that's why I said Josh instead of Joseph. But thank you, Joseph. Yeah, this August will be my 13th anniversary working in Cleveland. It's hard to believe. I love it every minute of it, and I'm not going anywhere. Jonathan, sorry, couldn't connect there, Jonathan. He says he'll ask his question here. Bull, do you know the truth about when Kolkinis left? Did he leave a gift on executive's desk after getting fired? I don't know. That's before my time, and I've never really followed up on that situation. So I don't know. Sorry, Jonathan. I wish I could help you. Let's see. Grant, Donovan Mitchell commented on him being frustrated on Twitter, saying it's all a lie. Okay. Well, listen, we all saw the report, and I'll talk about this for a minute before I go. We all saw the report from The Athletic, from Jason Lloyd and Joe Varden and Shams Charania. I could tell you for a fact that Jason Lloyd doesn't make stuff up, and he's not doing sensational journalism. It was physically exhausting for him to write that article. Trust me, the guy's my friend. I talked to him off the air. He is not looking to kill the Cavaliers. You may think that because you're biased. He is calling it down the middle. Most other people are biased, and he's not excited about, killing the Cavs in this article or saying the guys want to get traded. He told you what he's heard from multiple legitimate sources. So it's real, everything he said. Chatufu, Bull, thoughts on removing home plate umpires? You never remove home plate umpires. If at some point they do go to the electronic umpire, you'd still need a home plate umpire there just to kind of keep the peace and to call safe and out there. Joseph said it's rumored that Kokinis took a dump on his desk. Well, now I'd never heard that before, Jonathan. Now I'm going to ask some of the old timers in town to try to find out if that's true. Where do I start? The problem is I would normally go to Les Levine for this. And sadly, as we all know, Les passed away a couple of years ago. He'd be my first call on that. Maybe I'll call Andy Baskin. I feel like Jason might know that, even though he's not old enough. He wasn't in the media then. Maybe Mary Kay knows. I don't know. We shall see. Jason has a dark black soul. All right, that's fair, Chris. But you know what? The guy wants to do good work. That's all he wants to do. And he tries to be fair. I'm telling you. I'm not asking Rizzo. I can tell you that, Michael. Not interested. All right, thanks to everybody. Yeah, Hoinsey maybe. We'll see. Thanks to everybody for joining me. Thanks to everybody in the chat. Thanks to Monzo and Max for producing. Hope you enjoyed the live podcasts after all the Cavs games. And Thursdays, we'll continue to do the Thursday lives at 2 p.m. every week for now. And then once we get to baseball playoffs potentially and the Brown season, we'll have some new things for you as well coming down the pipe. Is down the pike or down the pipe? What is that expression? I can't remember. Anyway, I got a Little League game tonight. We need to get a win. We're 0-1-1. We had a freaking tie last game. I'm not happy about that. There should never be a tie in baseball. Love you too, Jonathan. Love you, Creative Juice. Love you all. I'll talk to you next time. Where else? But right here in the Bullpen with Adam the Bull, brought to you by Bet Rivers. See you, everybody. Have a great weekend.